Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have with us Calree Wolf, a global HR executive, strategist, speaker, 20 plus years of experience shaping talent, leadership, and culture in high performance environments. And we'll learn about from her about skills and adaptability, about how to explore AI, human connection, and continuous learning that are reshaping careers and workplaces. We'll talk about all this. Welcome to the show, Calree.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. We got a lot to cover. I'm
You
excited.
are welcome. Welcome, and indeed, lot to cover. You are welcome. Welcome to the show. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe, a lot of career people across the professionals across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll talk about the future of work and which is going to be about skills, not just titles. We'll talk about all that. But before that, let's talk a bit about your journey, your story, your background, Calree, so that the audience knows better who they are listening to.
For sure. Well, first of all, I'm very passionate about careers, so I'm excited that we're talking about this today. As you mentioned, I've spent 20 plus years in talent organizational development space. I've worked in for-profit, nonprofit, have also done some consulting. So I've worked in all sorts of different size organizations and industries. And that's on the kind of full professional side of things. I also am a 20-year volleyball coach. So I coach volleyball in the community, specifically sitting volleyball, which is an adaptive sport. So for those who watch the Paralympics, one, I encourage you to get into the Paralympics if you haven't been a fan, but that's a way to get in. So I take that and I'm embedded in the community. I also serve on a couple of nonprofit boards. And believe it or not, all of this ties into careers, right? Finding your passions, aligning your skill sets. But that's a little bit about me.
Absolutely, Calree. So let's understand this. Means, how do you see where we stand today at this point in time? Is it for career people, for professionals? How do we see it? Is it the best of times for professionals, or is it the worst of times for professionals with AI sweeping across almost all aspects of our lives?
Yeah, I think it's the best of times, but I think it is the times to be explored as well, right? So I think we are learning a lot about AI. I think we're just scratching the surface, right? In organizations, we're sort of at the stage of how do we make things easier for people to do their work. But I think it's important at this point when we talk about careers for people to continue to think about their skill sets, because I think skills has always been in the game. It's always been in the conversation. What skills do I have to bring? What skills can I develop? How does that relate to my career path and journey? But I think what's interesting right now is that things are changing so quickly with AI. Skills that were needed today may not be needed in a year from now. And so I challenge people to kind of think about what are they passionate about? How are they staying plugged into the economy of AI and how things are changing? And where can they start to advance new skills or leverage current skills that can be really applicable in the future? So I think it's a time to be explored, which I think is exciting. And I think it's a huge opportunity for everybody who wants to kind of get ahead of it.
Absolutely. So, who is the future all about? Is it for someone who is rooted to the ground, who is somebody, or is it about somebody who is rooted to their skill sets, or is it somebody who is rooted to artificial intelligence? Who is the future for? Will everyone get employed, or will most of the people will be, back off grid, living their lives, and only some will be actually employed in the old traditional sense of the word?
Sure. I think, listen, I think that the world of work is changed in many lifetimes and generations. And I think we're really at the beginning or potentially in the start of the middle of one. And so I think that what's great is that it is vast and it is open. To your question, I don't think there is one, I'll use the term persona or worker that is fitting the mold yet. I think really what the opportunity is to think about, at least today, is how am I augmenting my work and in my life with AI? And I think that's where we can get curious about things, right? What tools can help me advance in my job? What things can help me move more in life? How can I talk to people differently? My favorite new question today at the dinner table or the barbecue with friends is, "What did you learn about AI this week?" So I think we are in the world of we'll call it maybe the curious worker. Let's go with that, the curious worker, and where people can take it. But I think I want to leave with, it's not one size fits all. Curiosity can lead us down different paths. And so I think really the question is, who do you want to be? So today, as we are starting to emerge on change, how do people want to show up in the change? How do they want to lead in the change? And I think that that's what's open. And I think that's what's fun.
Absolutely. So let's look at some aspects that you talk about the real future of work. One is the skills, then we have got the AI and the human connection that we talk about. First, let's talk about skills. What skills? Means, are we can we survive the future with the old skills, or it is be something new? And with new skills, what do you mean? Is it again AI? Help us understand from the skill perspective as well as the AI perspective together, Carly.
For sure. And I think you teed it up well. I think they go together. I think the skills that are emerging are these AI related skills. So coming in baseline, it's really about how are you leveraging generative AI, right? Things like a chat GPT. How are you using prompts? How are you digging in, right? I'm just pulling on the most easiest example, but that's where people enter and can still enter all the way through. If you think about in your particular role, what are the things that you need to do every single day, and how can you augment that with AI? I think that's like another layer that people can explore and build their skills on. Then I think there's AI skills of the future. Am I actually building AI capabilities? Am I building AI related tools, right? Getting into that space and thinking creatively. So for example, I just had a friend who was building a dashboard and used AI as a partner, as an augmentation, and built that out from scratch. So I think that's an example of building where that skill set comes into play. So I think that that's where we go with skills. You also asked about like then the AI specific piece of it. I think that that's a marriage. I think there's the skills that I have in my job that are changing. I'll just speak to folks, myself, which is in HR. Maybe it's more about how am I thinking about leveraging for process improvement today? How am I thinking about the workforce of the future? So that's more of a strategy skill set. And then how am I also then building in those AI skills, which might be leveraging an AI tool to then start to help answer those questions or augment or support the skills that I'm building in HR. So that's just kind of a personal example, but I think that's where we sit. There's, to your point, there's an AI lane, there's a skill lane, and then there's the AI skills.
Absolutely. But let's look at the practical part of it, Carly. The population of the world. By the time we come, say, in the next few years, it's going to be too many people in the world. And you see, jobs are becoming less. AI is taking over more and more jobs, more and more functions. So even if some portion of people get involved in AI, in whatever they are doing, and looks like the number of jobs will actually be less, where will the other people, employable people, where will they go? Because the unemployment rate itself is rising everywhere, and governments are also worried with the passage of time, where will the additional people go? Because AI or not AI, jobs can only employ some number of people. Technically, even if somebody is technically very smart, technically very sound, where will they go? What should they start looking at? Should they join non-profit? Should they again go to the jungles, start growing fruits, vegetables? Let's look at from the practical aspect of it, Carly.
Yeah. Well, one thing I'd love to start with, and I think is really interesting when we just got done talking about skills, I think one thing that we can all be doing for one another as we go through this change is actually thinking about equity and inclusion and what actually advancing AI skill sets looks like. Because I think to your point around, we'll call it limitation or current limitation, it might be not everyone even has access to these things. And this has been like a global issue around, fill in the blank topic. And so I think the first question is, how do we get more people access to the tools, to the learning opportunities, so that they can actually stay on the curve, let alone even be able to lead the curve? So I think that it starts there, which is how do we bring people along? And I think we're still trying to figure that out. which is why I share that I'd encourage people to think about, because I think we can at this stage in our good humanness be thinking about these types of questions to support one another, especially if we run businesses, if we're leaders in business, or we serve our communities. How do we bring people along? In terms of your question of like global workforce and where we're headed, I mean, I think we're figuring that out. I think the question is, how do people stay up so that they can continue to reinvent or evolve themselves to meet the future where it's at? And then, by the way, I do hope people evolve their careers. I think that that's where we're at, right? Where I started may not be where I end. And whether that means maybe I retire early, maybe I shift into a different type of job, maybe now I have actually like multiple jobs, right? Maybe it's a bunch of like fragmented type of roles. I think this is the sort of thing that we're all sitting around and talking about. Like it's a big predictive space. Like imagine if, what could be. But I think the open question is like, what do people want to start to get into that's important for them? What do they value? What are the places that they think they can add value? And how do you continue to evolve your brand, your skills, and your AI augmentation so that you can stay relevant? And by the way, stay up on that more than we ever have before. So I think it's a good question. And I love it because I think we're all figuring it out.
Absolutely. In fact, you see, even the tech guys, some of the voices that is that about the basic income, that let's give some basic income to people, let them enjoy the fruits of art, all the development of the technology and AI and everything. And with that basic income, let them enjoy the fruits, whatever it is bringing, let them enjoy their life. And the rest of the things, they can do it. It means it looks like to be a reality, though maybe not, people are not talking in those terms. They're just still being optimistic. How do you look at that? It almost looks like a question of just when it will happen. There's no, I don't think the world or all these people who are deciding about the future of humanity or the workforce, they know where we are all going. What is your sense of this, Carly, to dig deeper into it?
Mm. What I kind of go back to is what service do we play in our communities? And I think that goes beyond the traditional construct of a job. And so earlier, you heard me talk about like how are we thinking about bringing people along and advancing their skills. I also think there's still like the human needs that we have when we connect in our communities. You look left, you look right. What do people need to move about the world? Whether that's opportunities for access to physical spaces like the space I'm in around adaptive sports, whether that's healthcare and access to healthcare, things of this nature. I think these are things that will continue to exist. And so to the question I think you're really asking is how are people evolving and still contributing? I think this is where these opportunities go. It may not be the traditional sense of where we navigate today, but where can people continue to serve in maybe different ways? And by the way, I just named a couple of things that exist in my community and exist today. I can only imagine what's going to also continue to evolve as we move 5, 10, 15 years out from now. So I go back to the question of where can people engage with the people around them to continue to solve problems. And perhaps in the future, it's even more about community, not just for the need that will be there, but also like, how do we keep that humanness, right? Because I think when we talk about AI, there's a lot that comes out, potentially connection, potentially empathy. And so to stay connected, to stay in the community and to still have impact in meaningful places, I think will be really, really powerful.
Absolutely, Carly. You talk about human connection also. What do you mean by human connection? Does it mean that people will become leave their phones, leave everything, and be much more closer? Almost like all this technology will become a blessing in disguise, like as they say, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. The opposite reaction will be humans will find their humanity, their closeness, their connection once again. Help us understand about this human connection that you talk about.
For sure. I mean, one thing could be that it could hope. Wouldn't that be great, right? If some of the tasks and frustrations that we have today could be alleviated, which opens up even more opportunity for human connection. I think that'd be amazing. The other part that when I say human connection, really it's an intentional phrase, which is if we look back and we've seen different disruptions in technology, when we think about social media, right? Early on, you're like, this is great. We're going to, be faster. We're going to be stronger. Then you move along and you start to see the erosion of like the human connection, meaning how we converse with one another, how we empathize and see the person from the other side, like walk in their shoes, if you will. make decisions about, like, if you think about decisions that you're making at work, it's not just about you or your team or the people you can see in front of you. How do you apply sort of that critical thinking to understand, no, it's about this team over here, it's about this global network over there, and we may not fully understand literally sort of everything from their shoes, but we can certainly go out and learn and ask. So when I talk about human connection, it's really continuing to lean in and try to understand one another, to try to support one another, to try to lean on each other for betterment, for good, and not to just lean on something like an AI to replace and to say, we're good here, we're good here. I think we're entering a stage of more intentionality of human connection and understanding. And that's why I bring it up, because I think it's an important part of this equation that I don't want us to lose sight of. And I hope that people take away from here as they're thinking about, we start with careers, like what's the career path for me. I'd encourage you to think about what's the career path and what's the connection that I can hold with others in that pursuit. Or for those that today that are making decisions about their organizations, about the future of the people that work for them in their careers, how do you hold empathy and understanding? How do you provide them the tools and resources to continue to be successful? That to me is all human connection.
Absolutely. And talking of human connection itself, let's look at the role of companies as well as leadership. How do you think they are preparing for it? How do you think they should be preparing for it? How do you think who will decide whom? Will the companies decide about the future, or will the leaders decide about the future who are leading such companies? Because individuals, by and large, we have talked about. How do you see this? And you talk about leaders, and you also talk about beyond titles and job descriptions. That will be about career growth in the future.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a great time for, when you think about being a leader or self-leader, what are the opportunities that you and the organization have in front of you to be reinventing itself? I think an organization will always have a view of where do we want to go, right? What market are we serving? How are we serving those consumers and customers, etc. However, I think it has been and will continue to be potentially even more upon the leaders and the people that make up a company to bring that vision to life, which includes new ideas, bringing innovations to the table, pushing really up to the edge of where that strategy can be delivered. And in the pace of change, I think now is even more upon leaders to say, well, leaders and people that work in organizations, what responsibility, what inspiration can I bring to the place that I work to continue to move us forward, to make sure that we're staying on top of things. So I think that it's all of the above, as it has been, but I think it's even more emphasized around what people can bring for the organization. Now, you ask about leadership skills and being a leader. What does this mean? Now more than ever, back to this sort of humanness conversation, I think being a leader or growing as a leader, evolving as a leader is more important now than ever. We need people who have the critical thinking, who can see through and make the connections, who can support their team and understand who they are and what they feel and are going through in their changes, to support these types of career transitions and growth that we're talking about, right? It takes a village, if you will, to support someone in continuing to evolve. And I've been really working with this new phrase lately, which is around learning out loud. How do we learn out loud together in a world and a pace that's always changing? I think we can learn out loud and learn from one another. And I think these are leadership attributes that people can be bringing in, not only for themselves, for their teams. So leadership is super, super important, because these are the folks that are going to help influence decisions, set the tone for culture, be the people in the community supporting evolution and keeping that humanness alive. So that's how I think about leadership. That's why it's also, I don't think it's just the title. I think we can all play a role in all of those attributes that we just talked about.
Absolutely. And let's look at the career growth itself, because a lot of people today are asking about purpose and so many things. The great resignation, quiet quitting, so many questions are already existing. The new generation is also looking at life much more differently than a decade earlier on that people used to. How do you think people will start looking at career growth? Will it be just vertical, or is it going to be much more horizontal and then branching out, all related to purpose? People want to know where they are going, not just growing in terms of the paychecks and all.
Yeah. I love that. And I love the blending of generations and how we're thinking about things, and as to the spirit of what we're talking about, what's possible for the future. So I like to think about people as sort of the center of their own world or their own life or their own home, whatever metaphor works for you, but sort of putting yourself in the middle. What are the things that I enjoy? What are the skill sets that I bring to the table? Just to name two things. And where can I tap into opportunities that help me deliver on those things? So part of it might be a job. Maybe that's my traditional, we'll call like 8 to 5, 9 to 5 job, or maybe it's 4 fragmented jobs. Maybe it's 7 gig jobs. Maybe it's 2 contracting roles. I don't know. And I think that's where the opportunity is for folks to be kind of rethinking about or reimagining what they want to bring in the world. And that's just from the career angle. Let's go back to, how am I serving my community? Do I want to be volunteering? Do I want to be on a nonprofit board? To name a couple of things. Do I want to, what are my passions? Maybe I want to talk to people about these things. I'm going to get on some podcasts and do some sessions. Maybe I really like biking and I'm going to join my bike community and help do fundraising for those that also want to bike with me. I give these examples because, to your point, I don't think it's horizontal. I don't think it's vertical. I think it is dynamic. And I think it is starting with, what am I passionate about? What are the skills that I can offer the world? And where do I want to navigate from there? And really finding a place that's powerful and meaningful for those individuals. Because I do think choice is evolving. And I think integration and flexibility will continue to evolve. And so it starts with you. And it starts with, I think, those key questions around passion, skills, and where you can go with that. So it's all of the above, my friend.
Absolutely, absolutely, Carly. Well put. Let me understand it better. How do you think, or what way do you think the employee of the future will think about their future, about their life, say, a couple of years down the line? How do you visualize that in a nutshell? What would you like to tell employees of tomorrow or employees of even today? How should they start preparing for the future, which looks to be uncertain?
I love to start with the question of, let's look at yourself from a year from now. What are the things that you want to be proud of? What are the things that you want to have stood for? And I think that starts to guide us around the values that we have and how we want to show up in the world. So I'd encourage people to think about that. The other part I encourage people to think about is the sort of dynamic world that we're in, which is marrying your skills with your passions, with the flexibility that is now coming that can help solve for the parts and pieces that matter for you most. And I think the last thing is, don't be afraid to challenge yourself. Take that step. It is going to be different. It is going to feel different. And so to make that first move for yourself, I think is exciting. I encourage people. And by the way, I hope people share those stories, because it starts with that one spark or that one example to be able to walk in the path, but also forge your own.
Absolutely, absolutely, Carly. There is so much to learn from you about all this, and I'm sure a lot of people would want to connect with you, learn more from you, about you, connect with you, even for professional engagements. What's the best way for them to do so, Carly?
I always encourage people to reach out on LinkedIn. I'm open to the connections. I'm open to the conversation. And I think that's where we can continue to talk and share with others. So LinkedIn is where it's at, and I'd love to hear from folks.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you so much.